Okay, so we're going to do a Sage Payroll question. So I'm going to open up the application here. Just double click on the shortcut once you have it installed, and it'll ask us for a login. So first time out, we're going to log in as admin and pass. And we don't put in any payroll details with that, just click OK. And the first time you use this application in this setting, you will need to add a user. So set up a user 1 we're using there, and the default group is group 1. And we're going to change the password. I'll just set it to pass. And click OK. So again, your tutor will instruct you as what users you need to set up there, and click OK. And you only have to do that once the first time you log into the application, set up your users, and then you're good to go to set up your companies. Okay, so we're going to create a company within the payroll system. So I click company setup, and I'm going to add a new company there. And the company name in this practice question is Leinster Limited. And I'm just adding in my initials there on the company name, and that's for printout so we know who owns what. So we click create company there. And once I have created that company, then I can just click on it, and I'm going to add a new payroll to that company. And the payroll ID, you might be given one in the question, or you can just use the first 4 letters from the company name. And the password for all of these is pass. And the frequency, again, you'll be told in your question, this is a weekly payroll, so you can select that from the drop down there, the weekly. And click create. And it just builds a database for that company and that particular payroll within that company. And I can click close on that. Okay, so now that I have set up the company, I'm going to log in as user 1, and the password is pass, and the code for my payroll is LEIN, L-E-I-N, and pass is the password, and OK on that. So that brings me into the payroll for Leinster Limited. Okay, so I've logged into my Leinster Limited payroll. So now I want to add departments. So I'm going to click company payroll on the left panel, and in there I have the option to manage departments. So I'm just going to put in the first department, and again this data is in my question, so it's 01 is the first code. It's the accounts department, and I'm going to click add. 02 is the next department, and it's administration, and click add. 03 is next, and that's HR, and add again, and the next one is 04, and that is marketing. And that's the end of the department setup. I just click OK to confirm that, and my departments are done. Okay, so the next piece we're going to look at are the payments and deductions, and again they're listed in your question. So if I go to company payroll, and I'll go to payments first of all, and in there are some preset payments such as basic payment, an hourly payment, and that's all taxable. There's overtime at time and a half, an hourly payment as well, and the settings are fine in that, and there's double time listed there as well. And we also have the salary listed, so I don't need to repeat those, they're fine as they are. I'm going to add some new ones here. We have a commission, C-O-M-O-N, commission, and commission will be set up as a variable amount each period, and it will have tax and USC, and PRSI will apply. Now, I'm not including it in any pension calculations, so there's nothing else to change there. I just click on save. And the next payment is a bonus, and the bonus is again going to be set up as a fixed amount each pay period, so you can fix it or variable, either of those will be fine, and it is taxable USC and PRSI applies, so you leave those settings and click save. And there is another one, and this is travel. So sorry, that's the travel expenses or mileage, as may also be called in your question. And this has to be set up as a fixed amount. We'll be calculating that, and you take out the tax, and there is no PRSI on that either, so there should be no tax or PRSI on that, and click save. So that's just a reimbursement for expenses in travel, and there's no tax PRSI on that. So that's all the payments, so I'm going to click close on that. And now I'm going to go to deductions, and by default I have LPT, which is local property tax, and pension is there as well, and pension is set up by default, and it's a deduction on the gross income, so that default is fine. I'm going to add a couple of new ones here. We have trade union, and the trade union is going to be set as a deduction on net, and there's no accumulating balance or anything on that. You click save. Oh, sorry, I haven't selected the subtype. There is standard. Click save. And the next one in this question is social club. And again, this is a deduction on the net, and it's standard, and click save. And the next one is health insurance, and again this is on net and standard, and save. And another one is a loan repayment, and again I'm paying that on my net after tax, and it's standard and save. And those are my deductions listed, and the only exception then in that really is the pension is on gross, but that's preset for you, so you can click close on that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do in Leinster Limited Payroll is follow this map here on the centre of your screen. So we're going to set the pay period, and I'm going to set the period without the calendar, and the new period process is week 1, and there's 1 insurable weeks in that week, and it's the 7th of the 1st 2019. So you take that from your question, and again if you copy it, Control C, and you can paste it in down along, Control V to paste, and that's all you have to fill in there, and click OK, and it'll prepare the database for that payroll week. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do on the payroll question is to edit employees, and again just following on my map here, I'm taking the second button, and it brings me into the new employee wizard. So I'm going to pop in the first name, and sorry, the first name is in there, and the surname here, and you'll be given an address, and the PPS number will be given as well, and just watch your question for the relevant data. And we're not given a date of birth, so that's okay. I just click next, and it brings me into the relevant screen then. So again, it's County Kerry. The contact details you have in what you got on your question, and this is a female employee. And once you have the basics filled in there, the next thing is to go to the second tab for tax PRSI. And in here, if I work down through the fields, the first field there is department, and it's the HR department, so select that. And tax USC status, again, this is normal salary, so I'm just going to click normal there. And there's no prior earnings in this first week. PRSI code is A1, and the cut-offs in our tax credits, I should say. So the tax credits for the year is 3,700, and that, as you tab down along or click through, it'll populate the period. And the next one is tax rate cut-off point. So for the year, that is 52,000. And the next thing then is the USC, and the USC rates have to be added in, so you click the override USC detail. So the top rate is pay in excess. I'm just going to add the top rate is listed there, so I'm just going to add the other rates. So the 0.5 is 12,012. So once I put in the yearly, it'll populate the weekly. The 2% rate is 7862, and the 4.5 is 50,170. And anything in excess of that is at 8%. So I click OK on that once I'm happy with that. And again, I can just tab just to make sure it populates there, and OK. And we should see them appear here. And that's that employee done. And I click Save. Okay, so following on the map on my payroll, I see the retrieve RPNs. Now the RPNs are the revenue payroll notifications, and in reality you'd run that every time you're doing the payroll. What it does is it connects your payroll system with the revenue online system and retrieves any up-to-date tax credits or details about your employees. And it has eliminated, of course, the paperwork system with revenue. So you would run that in reality before you run your payroll. But on an exam question here, we don't need to do that step because we don't have the link with revenue and it's not simulated. So we're going to go straight to enter time and pay. Okay, so I'm going to enter the time and pay for the first week in January, and I just click continue on that, and I bring up the first employee, who is Deirdre Murphy. And Deirdre Murphy, I have to enter her salary there is 800, and in week 1 she also earned a commission of 155, and I've also inputted her pension there of 30. So when you put in the pension, it asks you whether it's a percentage or a fixed amount. So in this question it's a fixed amount. I just click down on that, and it totals the pay slip here and gives a net pay, and generally you should keep an eye on that so that if anything's going wrong you can see it there. So I'm going to save Deirdre Murphy, and I'm going to select the next employee. So Anne Rin is next, so just to make sure you're on the right person, check the name, and I have entered her salary there of 700, and she's also getting a bonus for week 1 of €70, and she's also paying her loan of 45, so you just enter those values there. And again, her net pay is coming up there, and that's okay, and I click save. And I can go to the third employee, who is Emma Layden, and Emma Layden is on an hourly rate, so she gets paid €15 per hour, so that's the rate, and she has a standard 39-hour week, and that multiplies up in the system for you, so you don't have to multiply that. The time and a half, she has 4 hours at time and a half, so you have to enter the rate there. So 15 at time and a half works out at 22.50. So you enter that and it multiplies up for you. And there's actually no bonus or anything there. I'm just going to delete that. That's just carrying over from previous employee. So there's nothing else for Emma Lynch. Emily, I should say, and that's it. And there was no deductions or anything there, and I can click save. And the next employee is Paul Flynn, and Paul is getting €10 per hour, and it's a 39-hour week, so that's okay. And in week 1 he's worked 4 hours overtime, and that's at time and a half, so that's at 15, and that multiplies up as well. And there's nothing else there, and I'm going to click save on that. And that is my time and pay entered for my employees, and that's done. I can cancel out of that screen. Okay, so once I've entered the time and pay, the next step on the map is to run the end of period. So I'm going to click there, and it asks me to post the calculation results. I click OK. And that is processing the payroll for that period. And at that stage, if you're required to do so, you can print off the control summary or the gross to net report. And the next step then is to send the payroll submission to revenue. Now this is a step that we don't do in our exam questions because we're not connected to the revenue system, but obviously in a live setting you would do that. So the next step for us then would be to view or print the payslips, and here you can simply take the email option, and that gives you a PDF option here, and generate the payslips. Now it'll default to a reports folder, but you may want to save it to a particular exam folder depending on where you're asked to save it. So I'm just going to take the default here, but that's something you need to check with your teacher or examiner. So I click OK. And yes, to open the location there just so you can see that they're there. And I'm just going to open up one of the payslips here so you can see it. And it's a nice PDF format, and this particular format is easy to read. Now here we have Deirdre Murphy, and she's getting her salary and her commission, and her taxes are deducted, and she has a pension payment, and everything else looks good there. So that is the payslip. So I'm going to close that and cancel out of that screen, and that is my payroll done for the first period. Okay, so I have my payroll for week 1 done, but if I made a mistake on that, there is an option, and it's under processing. There's an option there to period rewind, so I could rewind it, and that allows me to edit it again. Now it usually works, and it's just if you made a mistake and it didn't allow you to proceed. So it's just a handy one, so it'll rewind it, and you'd have to go through the process of checking your time and pay and end of period again. Okay, so now we're going to start week 2, and again I'm going to follow the map on my payroll system. So the first thing I need to do there is set the period for the next payroll. So the new period process is week 2. There's 1 insurable week in that, and the payroll date will be 7 days out from that, so the 14th. So you can just change those up to to 14. Again, you can copy and paste that or just type it in. And OK that. So that's again the first step. So that leaves period 1 intact, and then we moved on to period 2, and you can see down here that we're on the correct payroll period, so make sure you check that. And then again, following my map, I'm going to edit employees, and there is a new employee for period 2, so if I click here, and this time I have to add a new employee, so I click new. And the first name is Richard, and the surname is Sheehan, and the address is Quinn. So I'm given a PPS number, and just to pop that in there, 4898. Yes, and oh, sorry, I put that in the wrong field. I'll just Control X that out and pop it in here. And click next. So again, just to go through the setup, this is Mail, and it's County Clare. The department for this employee is Accounts, so just to select that there, Accounts, and then I'm onto the second tab, and just to work down through, the tax status is normal, and the PRSI code is A1, and the tax credits are given at 3640, and the cut-off point at 39,000, and then we have the USC details. And again, I'm just going to add the rates there. So at 0.5 it's 12012, at 2% it is 7862, and at 4.5% we have 50170. And again, just tap that and OK it, and we should see them populate on the screen here. And we're also given in this previous employment earnings, so we need to go to the pay year to date, and in here, as always, I'm putting in the type of pay, and it's a salary, and it's a check. And in terms of year-to-date earnings, gross pay to date is 1,200. So gross pay 1,200 for pay and tax purposes. And tax deducted on that is given at 140. And again, there would have been a USC on that, and the USC paid is 60. And non-tax deductions, we don't have any other details there, and that's it. So that's year-to-date earnings for that employee. There was only 1 week so far anyhow, so there won't be too much else in it. And I save on that employee, and I can close out of that screen. And again, I'm skipping down then to enter time and pay. So for week 2, then I'm going to start at the beginning of the payroll. So if I take the first employee from the question, and that is Deirdre. And again, just double check all the details. So Deirdre Murphy, I'm told that her salary is 800, so that is down there, 800. During week 2, she received €60 in travel expenses, so travel expenses was 60. And her tax credit increased to 4,300. So in actual fact I haven't done that. I'm just going to save, and I'm going to go back out here to edit the employee. So her tax credits have changed, so that's increased to 4,300. So I'm just going to put that in there and save, and I can close out of that. And that is something that we would retrieve automatically through the RPNs, but we have to do it manually for our questions. So I'll go back to my enter time and pay and just ignore on that and continue. And again, if I click on Deirdre Murphy, I can just check that I have her details in there. So 800 salary and travel expenses 60, and that's it. And I can click save just to confirm that, and then I'm on to the next employee. So it's Anne Wynne, and her salary is 700 per week. So I'll put that in there again. And during week 2 she received a €90 bonus, so go to bonus, and that's 90. And she paid €15 trade union. So again, if I go over here to union and go 15, it'll populate there. And she's actually leaving on January 17th. The company was informed that her address is changed, so I can change that elsewhere. So I'll just save on that for a moment. So I also have to go back to edit the employee, and I want to go to Anne, and her address is changing to Cove. So just to update that, and that could be important so that her payslip goes to the right address. So that's that done. And cancel out of that, so I'm back to enter time and pay. And here we have Anne Wynne, so I have her done there, and it's okay. So I'm going to go to the next one, which is Richard Sheehan, and he has just joined, but he is there on the payroll. So his salary is 1,400 per week, and during week 2 he paid €60 health insurance, so 60 in there. And that's all I have for week 2. So I'm going to save on that, and I'll go to our next employee, who's Emma Layden. And Emma, again, she is paid €15 for a 39-hour week. Excuse me, so 39 hours is 15 is the rate there. And during week 2 she worked 2 hours overtime, double time. So 2 hours at double time is €30. So that populates up then to the actual amount. And another little note here is that she left the company on the 15th of the 1st, so she's not on the payroll for week 3. So what I can do here as well on this is just make a note that this is leaving and the leaving date. So it's really important to get the dates right there, and it's the 15th of the 1st. So this in effect then becomes her final payment, and it means then that's returned to revenue with the update. So we click save on that, and the next employee is Paul Flynn, and again he is on 39-hour week, and he gets €10 an hour. And we're told that week 2 he works 7 hours double time, so double time is 7, and he's on 10 basic, so double would be 20. starting week 2, his cut-offs have increased, so I'm just going to save that for the moment and cancel out and just enter the employee's details again there, and I'm looking for Paul Flynn, and here he is here. So just always make sure you're on the right employee, and his cut-off is increased, so I've got to go to the second tab here, and the cut-off is increasing to 43.55 there, and save on that. And I can close out of that and just go back into the enter time and pay, and I think I had him done there, but I'm just going to double check everything. So Paul Flynn, I have the basic and the double time, and the cut-off has increased there, so I can save on that. So that's all done. That's my payroll for week 2. I can close out of that screen, cancel or close out, and again I can generate control summaries or gross to net, and I can also do my end of period and click OK on that. And again, I would normally send that submission to revenue, but I don't in these particular questions. I'm going to view or print the payslips, and this is something I'm going to need, payslips for all employees for week 2. So again, take the email payslip option, PDF, and generate the payslips. And I'm using the default folder here. As I said, you would need to check with your examiner or teacher where to save, and click OK on that. And again, if I just go to that location, I can see my week 1 payslips are there, and my week 2 payslips are there as well, and it's perfect. So again, cancel out of that, and that is done. Okay, so I'm going to start the payroll now for week 3, and again I go through my map and start with the set period. So I have to set the period without the calendar, and it's week 3, and it's 1 insurable week, and the period date will just increase by 7 days there to the 21st, and I can copy that and just paste it down along through the various fields and click OK on that. And I should see then down here on my screen that the period is moved to period 3, and I don't have any changes to additional employees, so I'm going to go straight to enter time and pay in this instance. And again, I'm not retrieving the RPNs in this simulated example, so continue. And if I take my first employee, there was Deirdre Murphy, and again her salary is staying at 800, and during week 3 she received €45 bonus, so I just click on bonus and 45. There is no other details there on that, so I can click save, and I move to the next employee. So Anne Wynne is next. So Anne Wynne, her salary is 700, and during week 3 there's no other changes, there's no other bonuses or deductions, so I can click save on that, and I've already updated her address. And the next employee on my list is Richard, so again just double check the name is Richard. Salary is 1,400 per week, and for week 3 he receives 45 in a bonus, and he paid €10 towards the social club, so go to social club there and €10, and the cut-off I can change it here to 44, or I could also go back into the employee details and update it there. It's okay to edit it here as well, and I can click save on that. And then my next employee is Emma Layden, so if I click on Emma, So sorry, Emma has already left, so there's nothing else to add there. And my next employee then, I'm just going to cancel out that and go back in again. And my next employee is Paul Flynn. So Paul Flynn on week 3, he was paid 40 travel expenses, so he's still getting his standard 39 at 10 euros. 10 euros is the rate there. And it's just jumped across, so that's okay. And there was no overtime or anything, but there's a travel expense of 40, so travel expense he was reimbursed for that, and that's 40. And that's it then. Yeah, that's it for Paul Flynn, so I can save on that. And that's my 4 employees then for week 3. So I can again scroll through if you want to double check them, and it's important to make sure everything's okay before you move on to the processing. So I can cancel out of that. So I am asked then to generate the control summary report. So again, I'm going to do a PDF of that. And again, you want to direct it to the relevant folder. It's defaulting here to my Leinster folder in Sage Payroll Reports, but you may have another directory, and that's okay. I'm going to save that. And you can do the same with the gross to net report there. And again, click the PDF option and it'll default to the same folder, and click Save. And if you want to view the files, you can do. I'm just going to tick no on that for the moment. And again, we have to run the end of period, so post calculation results, and that runs through. And if required, you can generate the PDFs of the payslips for week 3, and they can go to the same folder as well. And again, if you want to check them there, you can. I'm just going to say no for the moment and cancel out of that. Okay, so the final step on your question is to back up your files. So I'm just going to click back up there. It's the final step on your map as well. And it defaults to the program files for backup. So you might want to put it in with your reports or whatever location you require for returning to your examiners. I'm going to put this in with my reports and back up to there. So it has been backed up successfully. Click OK. And the importance of a backup, really, you should do a backup at the end of each period. So at the end of period 1, period 2 and period 3. So I'd have 3 separate backups, and that would mean then that if something went wrong, I could restore to that backup point. And you see it there under miscellaneous restore. So backups are really, really important in practice, and in your exam you have to do the final backup for week 3. So when you've finished your exam, you want to make sure that you're returning all the relevant files to your examiner. So I saved all my work into the LEIN folder, so under quick access I can get to that. It was a folder in my documents, but you will have your own instructions got as to where to save. So just make sure that in that folder you have everything you need. So we have the payslips, and again you can just leave in the payslips that you're required there. I'm leaving all the payslips for the 3 particular weeks. I have my backup files, so there's 3 particular backup files that you can see there. So you just leave them there, you don't need to open them. They won't open outside of the application anyway. And you also were required to generate the control summary and the gross to net at the end of the 3rd week. And that's what you'll be returning to your examiner and printing from the various PDFs there.